The alien woman that the human man met was in mating season, but the man was unaware of it. The sky was on fire, and Ethan was definitely not qualified to fly anything anymore. He gripped the manual override with both hands, the control stick jerking like it was trying to slap him out of existence. Warning lights flashed in 12 different colors, a detail he might have appreciated under calmer circumstances. Mayday, mayday, this is cargo transport EH-31. I'm experiencing what I believe the technical term is aggressive atmospheric rejection. If anyone's out there, I'd love a ride, and maybe a drink. Static. Then more static. Then what sounded suspiciously like laughter from the emergency AI before it shorted out with a pitiful psst. The pod screeched through a layer of cloud shaped like a very offended octopus, and Ethan caught a glimpse of green, too green, beneath him. Trees. Lots of them. He aimed for a clearing, adjusted for wind, and then immediately lost control again as a flock of shrieking, multicolored bird things dive-bombed the windshield like they had a personal vendetta against him. The pod hit the jungle floor with a crunch, a scream, and a sound that could only be described as splat-adjacent. Ethan's seat restraints snapped open just in time to let him tumble out the hatch and land face first in something that smelled like old soup and looked like it had opinions. He lay there for a moment, alive, sticky, dignity scattered somewhere behind him like loose change. Well, he said to no one, that went medium. By the time he dragged himself clear of the wreckage and established that yes, the trees were pulsing faintly, and yes, his pants were now semi-sentient, it was evening. Twin moons hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow across the jungle. Everything shimmered like it had been dipped in glitter and bad intentions. Ethan rummaged through the emergency pack, found a ration bar, flavor, regret, and began to make camp. The jungle watched. Something chirped ominously. A vine tried to steal his boot. Then she appeared. Not with a crash, not with a shout. Just was suddenly standing at the edge of the clearing like she'd materialized from shadow and moonlight. She looked like a woman, mostly. Tall, lean, powerful, but not in the gym addict way. More like she could wrestle a dinosaur and win on principle. Her skin shimmered faintly, the color of old starlight. Her hair was long and dark, braided with threads of something that moved like liquid metal. But what drew his eyes most were her ears, long, tapered, twitching faintly with what looked like irritation. She stared at him, not like he was a threat, more like he was a particularly puzzling life form that had just announced it was great at interpretive dance. Ethan blinked. Hey there, don't suppose you're the welcoming committee? She didn't answer. Instead, she tilted her head, ears twitching again. A slow breath escaped her lips. You shouldn't have touched me, she said, voice low, almost a growl. Ethan looked around. Pretty sure I didn't, unless you count eye contact as invasive now. She stepped forward. He stepped back. She matched him. It was like being studied by a predatory librarian. He said. Name's Ethan. Pilot. Crash landed. You wouldn't happen to have, I don't know, a radio or a friendly shuttle service? Nothing. Well, this is going great. She exhaled through her nose. Your scent is disruptive. Ethan frowned, sniffed his sleeve. Look, I know I'm a little singed and soup-flavored, but I wouldn't call it disruptive. Follow, she snapped, turning on her heel and striding toward the trees. He hesitated. Follow the strange, beautiful alien woman who seemed mildly homicidal and vaguely allergic to his existence? Absolutely not. 10 seconds later, he was following. The jungle swallowed them quickly. As Kaelith, he overheard her mutter her name while scanning a glowing stone and decided to mentally bookmark it under caution, may bite, led the way through bioluminescent undergrowth and trees that hummed if you stared too long. So, he said casually, dodging a vine that tried to caress his neck, is this a normal Tuesday for you? Silence, she said. I respect that, but hear me out. I get chatty when I'm nervous, or confused, or in the presence of tall women who can probably bench press me. She stopped, looked at him over her shoulder. Her eyes glowed faintly. Why did you touch me? I didn't, he began, then remembered, the moment in the clearing. When he'd first seen her, she'd stumbled slightly over a root. Instinctively, he'd reached out, just brushed her arm to steady her. That, he said, that was barely It was enough, she said. Well, I'm sorry, I guess. Where I'm from, we call that not letting someone faceplant. Kaelith's jaw tightened. She turned and resumed walking. Right? Social norms, different planets? Got it. Ethan muttered. Touching bad, jokes also bad. Breathing, jury's out. They reached a ridge. Below, nestled in a cradle of glowing stone and fungal growth, was what looked like a half-buried facility. Metallic, cracked, overgrown, but humming faintly with power. Kaelith pointed. Shelter. You will rest there. You're not coming? I am not resting. Well, okay, thanks, I think. He made his way down toward the facility, which beeped and clicked at him like it was surprised he'd survived anything at all. Inside was stale air, flickering lights, and a bunk that didn't smell worse than he did, which was frankly all he needed. Kaelith remained outside, a silhouette against the moons, her ears twitching in rhythm with her breath. Ethan lay back, hands behind his head, staring at the cracked ceiling. So, definitely not just a casual misunderstanding, he muttered. Outside, the jungle whispered secrets, and Kaelith, standing guard, clenched her fists as the bond began to stir. Ethan awoke to the sound of something snoring. It took a few seconds to realize it was the ventilation unit above his head, rattling like it had a deviated septum and a personal grudge. The rest of the facility wasn't doing much better. The lights flickered like they were auditioning for a horror movie, and something in the corner was dripping rhythmically, possibly water, possibly something with more teeth than molecules. He sat up slowly, wincing. Every muscle felt like it had been politely rearranged and then reassembled by someone who'd skimmed the manual. His brain felt like an overcooked ration bar. Outside, the sky was still dark, but lighter than before, dawn approaching in that weird alien way, with colors not listed in the standard visible spectrum. Kaelith wasn't in sight. Ethan rummaged through the facility until he found a semi-functional medpack, a stack of ancient data chips in a language that looked like it had been written by spiders on caffeine, and what appeared to be an alien espresso machine with only a 30% chance of explosion. He took the gamble. The machine hissed at him, blinked threateningly, and produced a cup of something black, hot, and potentially alive. "Good morning to you, too," he said, sipping cautiously. It tasted like old dreams and battery acid. By the time Kaelith returned, silent as ever, he was outside the facility trying to coax a solar panel into charging his broken comm. It wasn't going well. The panel had all the enthusiasm of a moody teenager and roughly the same work ethic. "You're still here," she said. "I live here now," Ethan replied, "thinking of starting a cult. You in?" Kaelith did not respond. She stared at him, arms crossed, the moons behind her giving her a faint silhouette glow effect that made her look both ethereal and annoyed. He cleared his throat. "Right, so, yesterday, I may have touched you, accidentally, and now you're acting like I'm a contagious rash. Care to elaborate?" She approached. He could see her jaw working, like she was chewing words before deciding which ones deserved release. "My kind," she said at last, "are attuned during a specific time. Seasonal, biological. Like space allergies?" Her ears twitched. "No, mating season." Ethan choked on his drink. "Oh, it is not voluntary. It is sacred. Biological contact activates the bond." "Okay," Ethan said slowly, "but in my defense, you were falling. What was I supposed to do? Let you faceplant into a haunted tree root?" Kaelith's eyes narrowed. "You touched. That was enough. So now what? You've got alien feelings for me? We're psychically married? Is this one of those sci-fi sitcom setups where I become your accidental husband and hilarity ensues?" Kaelith didn't laugh, but she did blink slowly. "There is no hilarity." "There's never hilarity," Ethan muttered. "Okay, look, you're obviously going through something weird and hormonal and possibly ancient and terrifying. Is there a way to, I don't know, unbond? Hit the undo button?" "There is no undo," she said. "Only progression." "Cool. Cool. Definitely not terrifying. So what does that mean for us?" Kaelith looked away, hands flexing at her sides. "It means your presence will accelerate the process. You are compatible. The bond is deepening. My control is lessening." "Great. So I'm basically a walking pheromone dispenser." Kaelith gave him a look. "Your scent is unusually potent. I showered 3 days ago." She turned away abruptly and began walking toward the jungle. "Where are you going now?" he called. "To think, alone." "Okay, cool. I'll just stay here and chat with the angry coffee machine. We're very close." Ethan spent the next few hours trying to decode the outpost's data system, which mostly consisted of swearing at the ancient interface and asking the AI progressively more sarcastic questions. "Query," he said aloud. "Probability of alien princess falling for stranded pilot?" The screen blinked, then replied, "Calculating. 0.07%. Well, at least I've got a chance." Later, Kaelith returned. She looked more composed, less like she was one emotion away from launching him into the sun. "I have found a path," she said. "There is an uplink tower 10 kilometers west, ancient but may still function. You're suggesting we go on a hike together in the jungle, where there are monsters and plants with abandonment issues." "Yes." "Okay. Do I get a weapon?" "No. I feel very safe already." The trek began the next morning, under a sky that had the decency to be only mildly terrifying. As they walked, Ethan tried to make conversation. Kaelith responded mostly with silence, except for one moment when he stepped in a puddle and shrieked. "That was water," she said. "It was ambiguous water. It had texture. You are dramatic. You are intense." They moved through shifting underbrush, where vines whispered and trees occasionally giggled. Ethan was choosing to believe it was the wind. Once, they were followed by a floating creature that looked like a cross between a jellyfish and a planetary defense system. Kaelith stared it down. It fled. "I'm starting to see why you don't need a weapon," Ethan muttered. By mid-afternoon, the bond had begun to hum again, a low, persistent thrum in the back of Ethan's skull, like a shared memory trying to surface. Kaelith moved differently now, more tense, as if fighting something inside her. He slowed his pace. "You okay?" "I am. Managing. Look, if I'm the problem, I can walk 10 meters ahead, or behind, or in an entirely different direction." She looked at him, and for the first time there was no annoyance, just something softer. "You are not the problem. You are the catalyst." Ethan blinked. "Same thing, isn't it?" "No," she said. "The catalyst begins change, the problem resists it." They reached a narrow pass of glowing rock where the jungle thinned and the air turned cooler. Kaelith stopped suddenly. "I must rest," she said. "Sure, do you want water? Protein bar?" Inappropriate joke. She sat on a mossy stone, exhaled slowly. "Just quiet." Ethan sat across from her, watching her carefully. Her hands were clenched, her breathing shallow. "I didn't mean for this," he said quietly. "To mess up your sacred ritual thing. To make this harder." "It is not harder," she said after a moment. "Just unexpected." They sat in silence, the bond humming between them like a shared heartbeat. Somewhere nearby, a bird sang a tune suspiciously like an old Earth commercial jingle. Ethan grinned. Kaelith didn't laugh, but she did smile, just a little. Ethan woke up halfway through a dream involving a sentient toaster, a ballroom dance competition, and Kaelith trying to strangle him with an electric extension cord while wearing formal battle armor. He blinked at the ceiling of their makeshift shelter, which consisted of vines, thermoplastic scrap, and something he suspected used to be part of a sanitation drone. Kaelith was already up, crouched outside the shelter, sharpening a blade against a stone like she was auditioning for a role in Alien Warrior the Musical. "Morning," he said, rubbing his eyes. "Slept like a rock, or at least like someone hit by one." She glanced at him. "You snore." "Lies. That was clearly the wildlife, or possibly the structural groaning of my self-worth." Kaelith returned to her blade. "You talk in your sleep, too." "Oh no. Was it embarrassing?" "You were arguing with someone called Captain Crunch." Ethan sighed. "Yeah, he owes me money." They broke camp quickly. The air had that strange, charged stillness again, like the planet was holding its breath, or waiting for the punchline to a very long joke. They moved in silence for a while, Ethan doing his best not to trip over vines, roots, or his own increasingly traitorous feet. Kaelith walked with the grace of someone who didn't know how not to be intimidated. Ethan walked like someone who had once tried to moonwalk across a zero-G cargo bay and ended up in the emergency room. "Just to be clear," he said after their third hour of hiking, "if I suddenly start glowing or floating or developing telepathy, I'd appreciate a heads up." Kaelith didn't stop walking. "That is unlikely. The bond is not mutagenic, it's symbiotic." Still sounds like something out of a sci-fi horror film. "The symbiotic bond, this summer, love eats your brain." She didn't smile, but he noticed the corner of her mouth twitch. Progress. They reached a cliffside with a narrow ledge and a panoramic view of what Ethan immediately dubbed the jungle of mild regret. Below was a ravine filled with mist and odd floating rocks that bobbed up and down like confused balloons. "I'm not great with heights," Ethan said. Kaelith didn't answer. She started walking. "Oh good," Ethan muttered. "Let's take the death path." They made it across without dying, which Ethan considered a win, despite his knees clicking like broken castanets. On the other side, they encountered something new, a shimmer in the air that made the space ahead flicker like bad hologram reception. Kaelith frowned and extended her hand. The shimmer pulsed, then flicked off like a light switch. "Cloaking field," she said. "Someone really didn't want company," Ethan muttered, "which means we're definitely invited." Behind the now visible shimmer was an old survey station, rusted, half sunken into the earth, but unmistakably of human design. The walls bore the logo of Inter-System Terraforming and Coffee Supply, a company notorious for half-finishing planets and overpricing espresso pods. Ethan approached the station's main door and tapped the panel. A robotic voice chirped, "Welcome to ITCS Virellia Field Node. Access denied. You are not authorized." Ethan frowned. "It's been 100 years. Who's still authorized?" "Dr. Thalia Mendez. Status, dead. Still more qualified than you," Ethan sighed. "Rude." Kaelith stepped forward and placed her palm on the scanner. It blinked, then beeped, then unlocked. Ethan blinked. "Didn't peg you for a coffee consultant. I knew the humans stationed here, a long time ago." Inside the station, lights flickered to life. Dust floated in lazy spirals. Machines hummed to life like waking beasts. Ethan brushed off a console and found a power relay still functioning, barely. Kaelith moved with ease, flipping switches and adjusting knobs like she'd done it before. She found a secure access terminal and began downloading what looked like encrypted data logs. "Is that your diary?" Ethan asked. She didn't look up. Tactical records, notes on planetary changes, and locations of known resonance fields. "Ah, so not juicy gossip." The console beeped a warning. Then a faint hum began to rise from beneath the floor. "That doesn't sound like good news," Ethan said. Kaelith drew her blade. "Defense systems activating? This station is not dormant." "I'm going to assume that's the planet's way of saying no trespassing." From the far wall, a security drone unfolded. Then another. Then 12. Ethan backed up. "Okay, so diplomacy or running?" Kaelith answered by flinging a small EMP grenade into the air. It exploded with a pulse of light and a sound like someone slapping a cymbal with a pillow. The drones dropped. "Running, then." They darted through the corridors as more systems flickered to life. The station groaned like it remembered being important and wasn't happy about it. Outside, the shimmer field began to reassert itself. Kaelith grabbed Ethan's arm. The touch was brief, electric. Her pupils dilated. Ethan blinked. "Did something just happen?" "The bond is stabilizing," she said, voice low. "It is learning from us." "Well, that's not creepy at all." Back in the jungle, the atmosphere felt different. Heavier, charged like a storm waiting for its cue. Kaelith was silent. Ethan followed, trying to ignore the way her presence was starting to tug at the back of his thoughts, like a half-remembered song or a dream trying to wake him. "Are you okay?" he asked. "No." "Want to elaborate?" She stopped walking, turned to him. Her face was unreadable. "The bond is progressing faster than I anticipated. Your biology amplifies the effect. I cannot block it. I cannot resist it." Ethan opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Well," he said finally, "if it helps, I'm equally confused, mildly terrified, and also kind of impressed. You've got great composure for someone whose DNA is trying to date me." Kaelith stepped closer, not touching, but close enough that he could feel the heat radiating off her skin. "It is not just my DNA," she said. Ethan blinked. "Oh." She turned and walked again. Ethan followed. Far above them, something unseen stirred in the clouds. Ethan was not entirely sure how they ended up trapped in a fungal cavern, but he was 90% sure it had something to do with his poor decision-making and one suspiciously enthusiastic mushroom. He'd leaned on it, all right, just to catch his breath. It wasn't labeled biological elevator, and it definitely hadn't mentioned anything about launching them underground via rapid mycelial propulsion. One minute they were hiking toward the uplink tower, and the next they were being digested, politely, by the world's most enthusiastic subterranean ecosystem. Kaelith landed in a crouch. Ethan landed like a bag of noodles. "You did not listen," she said. "I leaned," he groaned. "There was no sign, no tentacle warning, no, 'Hey, this is a bad idea' hologram." She looked around. The cavern glowed softly with bioluminescent fungi, tall spore stalks pulsing in odd rhythms. The air hummed faintly. "We're inside a living network," she said. "Virellia's fungal consciousness spans the planet. This area is old." Ethan sat up slowly. "So the planet has a brain? A memory. Well, I feel weirdly underdressed. Kaelith knelt beside a glowing node. Her fingers danced across its surface, and the air responded. Flickers of light, waves of scent, a soft chime like a digital bell echoing through bone. Ethan watched her, heart thudding too hard. The bond wasn't quiet anymore. It murmured constantly, a gentle tug in his mind, like Kaelith's presence had become part of his internal monologue. "Are you talking to it?" he asked. "Yes. Can I say hi?" "You already did, when you touched the mushroom." "Ah, so the Spore Network and I are now on a first-name basis. Should I send a thank you fruit basket?" The fungi responded with a low pulse of light. Kaelith stood. "It will let us pass, for now, but we must not stay long." They moved through the cavern, past swaying spore trees and root clusters that blinked like sleepy eyes. Occasionally, a psychic echo brushed Ethan's thoughts, a child laughing, a scream, the sensation of falling upward. "Okay," he muttered. "Not gonna lie, this place is cooler than it is terrifying. Like a haunted amusement park, but with more existential dread." Kaelith said nothing. Her jaw was tight. "You're not okay," he said. "I am close to critical." He stopped walking. "Then let's stop, take a break, do some alien breathing exercises, maybe a trust fall." "It's not that simple," she said. "The bond is reaching full phase if it completes." "What happens?" Her gaze didn't waver. "I won't be able to control what I feel, what I want." He stared at her, then slowly said, "Okay, so what do you want?" Kaelith stepped closer. "To protect you, to stay near you, to merge." Ethan blinked. "You say that like it's a bad thing." She clenched her fists. "It is not romantic, it is biological, overwhelming. You did not choose it." He took a breath. "But maybe I would have." Silence stretched between them. Then the ground beneath them rumbled. Kaelith's eyes narrowed. "Something else is here." A moment later, the cavern shook as part of the spore wall peeled open, revealing a massive, multi-legged creature that looked like a hybrid of a beetle, a satellite dish, and an anxiety attack. Ethan swore. "Oh, good." The welcoming committee brought snacks. Kaelith drew her blade. "It is not part of the fungus." "It's not part of me either." The creature shrieked, though the sound bypassed ears entirely and went straight to Ethan's nervous system, turning his bones into tuning forks. Kaelith didn't hesitate. She charged. Ethan ran the opposite direction, looping around behind the creature in a move that could generously be called tactical and less generously be called panic. Kaelith slashed, sparks flew. Ethan found a discarded mining tool, yanked its power core loose, and hurled it at the creature's back. It exploded in a dramatic display of chaos and mushroom chunks. The creature stumbled, then collapsed. Kaelith turned to him, breathing hard. "You fought?" "I improvised, poorly." She reached for him, hesitated. Then her hand brushed his. The bond surged. Images flickered between them. Memories not theirs, emotions layered over thought. He saw her as a child, training with stern-faced elders. She saw him crashing his first speeder bike into a juice stand. He laughed. "Wow, you're so much cooler than me." She smiled faintly. "And you are. Strange." "I get that a lot." The cavern rumbled again, this time gently. The spores were shifting. The fungi, perhaps sensing their brief cooperation, offered a gentle push, a tunnel opening through the far wall. "Exit," Kaelith said. "Can we never come back here?" "Agreed." They climbed into the tunnel, the fungal glow dimming behind them. At the top, daylight spilled through cracked stone. Outside, the world had shifted. The sky was darker. Clouds swirled with magnetic charge. Ethan looked up. "Is that a storm?" Kaelith didn't answer. He turned. She was standing still, eyes wide. "It's begun," she said. "The signal. Someone's responding to the bond." Ethan's heart dropped. "You mean someone else is tracking it?" "My people. They can feel the bond. It's reached the threshold. They're coming. For you? For us." Ethan let out a breath. "Okay, not to sound dramatic, but what happens if they find us?" Kaelith met his eyes. "They'll try to separate us. They'll think you're a danger to me, that the bond is corrupted." "Is it?" She stepped closer. Her voice dropped. "No, it's real." He smiled despite everything. "Then we run, or hide, or negotiate, or all three, in that order." Kaelith took his hand. This time, she didn't flinch. "This planet's weird," Ethan said. "I think I like it." Far above, streaks of silver crossed the sky, ships entering atmosphere. The hunt had begun. The ships landed like thunder made visible, sleek silver crafts piercing the Virellian canopy with unerring precision. Ethan watched them descend from the ridge beside Kaelith, arms crossed, chewing on the end of a dried fruit stalk that tasted vaguely of licorice and interplanetary doom. Okay, he said. So that's what, 6 of them? Maybe 7 if you count the one shaped like a really smug swordfish? Kaelith didn't respond. Her ears twitched, eyes locked on the sky. They're scanning, she said, searching for resonance. Which is code for us, right? Yes, right. So this is probably not the best time to suggest we build a treehouse and start a mushroom farm. Kaelith turned her head slightly. Not now. Just saying it's a viable plan B. They ducked back under the rock ledge, moving fast and silent. The jungle bent subtly with their pace, leaves folding, vines retracting. Virellia somehow was still on their side, or at least enjoying the drama. Ethan kept close, letting Kaelith lead. The bond had changed. Not just the occasional psychic flicker or vague emotional ping, but real synchronization. He could feel her focus, the tight coil of her worry. Not fear. Kaelith didn't do fear. But she was preparing herself for loss. He hated that. Look, he said as they reached the hollowed-out trunk of a wormwood tree. We've got a few minutes before the cavalry shows up with very shiny armor and absolutely no sense of humor. Can I just say, I'm glad I touched your arm that day? She paused. You don't understand the risk. No, I do. Now I do. Your people think the bond is sacred, but only under controlled circumstances. Me? I'm an anomaly. A walking breach of etiquette. But I'm also here, and I'm not walking away unless you ask me to. She didn't answer, but her fingers brushed his again. Then came the hum. Not mechanical. Psychic. Like the entire jungle just inhaled. The Virelian retrieval squad arrived in a shimmer of cloaking distortion. Tall figures in mirrored armor, their faces hidden behind helms with shifting blue lights. Their leader stepped forward, flanked by 2 psionic guards. Kaelith stepped out before Ethan could. Protocol says I must report my state, she said. The bond has formed fully. The lead warrior didn't move. Unacceptable. The council did not sanction this union. Your control was lost. Kaelith's tone sharpened. I did not lose control. I chose not to resist. You were vulnerable. I was aware. Ethan stepped out then, raising his hand. Hi, Ethan. You're all very tall and terrifying. Listen, I know I'm not part of the plan, but you interfered with a sacred right. Technically, I accidentally interfered. There was gravity involved. Also emotional sincerity. Plus, I make excellent coffee. The guards raised their hands. Kaelith moved in front of him. No, she said. He is not a threat. He is the reason I survived. The lead warrior finally spoke again. Then submit to judgment. Return with us. Let the bond be tested. Kaelith looked back at Ethan. He nodded. We'll face it together. The transition was fast. A psionic field wrapped around them, disassembled them molecule by molecule, and deposited them into a cold, glowing chamber aboard one of the orbiting ships. Tests followed. Psychic trials, dream immersion, memory cross-linking. Ethan relived half his life, including that one embarrassing karaoke night on Mars Station 9. Kaelith was tested for deviation, instability, emotional corruption. Hours passed, or days, or both. Then silence. They sat together in a circular chamber, staring at the floor as the council's final deliberation echoed above them in a language that tasted like static and salt. Ethan leaned close. If they execute me, please remember to avenge me in an epic poem. Kaelith didn't smile, but her hand squeezed his. Finally, the verdict came. Not rejection, not punishment, acceptance. The bond was deemed stable, unique, yes, unprecedented, but not dangerous. Instead, it was labeled evolutionary. A new path, a merging of species thought incompatible. Kaelith was offered a new designation, liaison, a bridge between Virelian culture and off-world understanding. Ethan was offered, well, technically nothing. But Kaelith refused unless he was granted citizenship and a place beside her. They were returned to Virellia, not as fugitives, but as something stranger, and somehow celebrated. Ethan built a comm tower with help from the fungal network, who now found him amusing. Kaelith trained new envoys. Occasionally, they sparred for fun. She won 19 out of 20 times, and only once did Ethan manage to disarm her, mostly by accident and gravity. The bond remained, not just a psychic tether, but a shared rhythm. One morning, as Ethan tried to teach Kaelith how to make pancakes without starting a minor chemical reaction, he paused mid-stir. I was kind of a mess when I got here, he said. Kaelith tilted her head. You are still messy. True, but now I'm someone's mess. That's progress, right? She stepped behind him, arms around his waist. It is evolution. Outside, the jungle sang. and Virellia watched them both, with curiosity, with memory, and with approval. The end